Welcome back, football fans. Big Al here on this Monday, February 13th, 2023. And you know what that means? Football season is now officially over. So, this will give me some time here to look at the final NFL standings, team and individual leaders from the 2022 season. And again, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs on winning their second Super Bowl in 5 years, their third overall as a franchise. And also my updated standings from the NBA and NHL and the playoff races from both of those leagues. That video is up now if you want to catch that. I post those every Monday. So if you're a hoops fan, you're a hockey fan, feel free to check that out. Okay, let's jump into the final 2022 NFL standings, starting off in the AFC North. Won this year by the Cincinnati Bengals. 12-4 record. Now they had one game scrapped from the schedule because of the Damar Hamlin incident. That's why the Bengals have only played 16 games. They finished 12-4, 418 points scored, 322 points allowed, and they closed the regular season with 8 wins in a row. In second place and locking up a playoff spot were the Baltimore Ravens at 10-7, 350 points scored, 315 allowed. They have lost 2 games in a row to close the season. Third place were the Pittsburgh Steelers, 9-8, 308 points scored, 346 allowed. They closed the season on a 4-game winning streak. And Mike Tomlin still has not had a losing record as the Steelers head coach. And the team as a whole has not had a losing season since 2003. So that streak continues. Fourth place for the Cleveland Browns, 7-10, 361 points scored, 381 points allowed, and they lost their final game of 2022. All right. Just as the Cincinnati Bengals only played 16 games and won their division, that can be said about the Buffalo Bills winning the AFC East with a 13-3 record. 455 points scored, 286 points allowed. They closed the season with 7 straight wins. Second place were the Miami Dolphins, who claimed the playoff spot, 9-8 record, 397 points scored, 399 allowed, winning their final game of the season. Third place are the New England Patriots, 8-9, 364 points scored, 347 allowed. They would lose their final game of the season. And finishing last, the New York Jets, 7-10, 296 points scored, 316 points allowed. And they would close the 2022 campaign with 6 straight losses. On to the AFC South. Won by the Jacksonville Jaguars with a 9-8 record, 404 points scored, and 350 points allowed. They would finish the regular season off with 5 straight wins. Finishing second and just crashing and burning at the end of the year was the Tennessee Titans at 7-10. Scored 298 points, allowed 359. They would finish on a 7-game losing streak. Third place were the Indianapolis Colts, 4-12-1, 289 points scored, 427 points allowed. They would also close the season on a 7-game losing streak. And in last place in the AFC South would be the Houston Texans, 3-13-1, 289 points scored, 420 points allowed. They would close the season with a win. And out in the AFC West, you've got the now newly crowned Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. 14-3 record, 496 points scored, 369 points allowed. They would close the regular season with 5 straight wins. Second place getting into the playoffs were the Los Angeles Chargers. 10-7, 391 points scored, 384 points allowed. They would lose their final game. Third place, the Las Vegas Raiders, 6-11, 395 points scored, 418 points allowed. They would lose their last 3. And in last place, a very disappointing last place, the Denver Broncos, 5-12 record, 287 points scored, 359 points allowed, but they would win their final game of 2022. On to the NFC North. Won by the Minnesota Vikings, probably the luckiest team of 2022. They finished 13-4, 424 points scored, and 427 points allowed. They would win their final game. And believe it or not, 12 of Minnesota's 13 wins, were decided by 1 score or less. And they had a negative point differential. Possibly maybe the worst 13-win team in NFL history. One team that really surprised this year finished second in this division, and that's the Detroit Lions. 9-8 with 453 points scored and 427 points allowed. So they allowed the same amount of points as the Vikings. And Detroit would close the season with 2 straight wins. In third place, you have the Green Bay Packers. Will Aaron Rodgers return or won't he? That's the question we'll be answering this offseason. The Pack finished 8-9, 370 points scored, 371 points allowed, and they would lose their final game. And that was, ironically enough, to the Lions. Fourth place, the Chicago Bears, 3-14. They finished with the league's worst record. 326 points scored, 463 points allowed. And they would close the season with 10 straight losses. And they will have the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft this spring. All right, to the NFC East, you have the Philadelphia Eagles, top team in the conference, made it all the way to the Super Bowl. 14-3 record, 477 points scored, 344 points allowed. They would win their final game of the regular season. Second place, making the playoffs, the Dallas Cowboys, 12-5, 467 points scored, 342 points allowed. They would lose their last game. Third place, also making the playoffs, the New York Giants, 9-7-1, 365 points scored, 371 points allowed. They would lose their most recent game. And in last place, the Washington Commanders, 8-1, 321 points scored, 343 points allowed, and they would win their last game of the reg season. All right, on to the week. NFC South, won by Tom Brady's Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 8-9 record, 313 points scored, 358 points allowed. They would lose their last game. And then based on tiebreakers, the Carolina Panthers would finish second at 7-10, 347 points scored, 374 points allowed. Winners of their last game. Third place would be the New Orleans Saints, again based on tiebreakers. 7-10, 330 points scored, 345 points allowed. They would lose their last game. And fourth place would be the Atlanta Falcons. 7-10, 365 points scored, and 386 points allowed. And 2 straight wins to close the year. And if you look at the NFC South, all 4 teams finished with negative point differentials. You had a minus 45 differential for Tampa Bay, a minus 27 for Carolina, minus 15 for New Orleans, and minus 21 for Atlanta. That brings us to the NFC West. The San Francisco 49ers ran away with this division, finishing 13-4, 450 points scored, 277 points allowed. They would close the regular season with 10 straight wins. Second place making the playoffs are the Seattle Seahawks, 9-8 record, 407 points allowed, or rather 407 points scored and 401 points allowed. They would win their final 2 games to close out the regular season. In third place were the then defending Super Bowl champs, the Los Angeles Rams, 5-12, 307 wins, or 307 points scored, 384 points allowed. They would close the year on a 2-game losing streak, and the 12 losses would set an NFL record for the most losses by a defending Super Bowl champion in history. But they weren't the worst team in this division. That was the Arizona Cardinals, finishing 4-13, 340 points scored, 449 points allowed. They would finish with a 7-game losing streak. All right, so looking at the playoffs, we'll start with the AFC first. In the wild card round, the Jacksonville Jaguars, of course, erased a 27-0 deficit and beat the Chargers 31-30. The Buffalo Bills had a surprisingly tough time with the Miami Dolphins, but they ended up winning 34-31. The Cincinnati Bengals would then defeat the Baltimore Ravens 24-17. The Jaguars advanced to play the Chiefs, and they would lose 27-20. The Bengals would advance to play the Bills, and Cincinnati won that game easily, 27-10. The Chiefs would then beat the Bengals in the AFC Championship game, 23-20. On the NFC side, in the wild card round, the Minnesota Vikings would fall to the New York Giants, 31-24. The Giants would advance to play the Eagles. The 49ers hammered the Seahawks 41-23. And the Dallas Cowboys, despite their kicker missing 4 extra points, they would rout the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-14 on what would prove to be Tom Brady's last game in the National Football League. So that means the Niners and Cowboys would advance to the divisional round, and they would play each other. And San Francisco won a defensive grinded out game, 19-12, while the Eagles took flight and just flew all over the Giants, winning 38-7. Then in the NFC Championship game, even though the Eagles didn't play their best, they still won 31-7 on the strength of 4 rushing touchdowns. So that put the Eagles into the Super Bowl, where they would fall to the Kansas City Chiefs 38-35. So the Chiefs would win its 3rd Super Bowl in franchise history, its 2nd in the last 5 years. And Patrick Mahomes was named Super Bowl 57 MVP. Okay, as for team numbers, we'll look at the top 10 in each category. All right, so the top 10 in points scored were the Kansas City Chiefs, number 1 at 29.2 points per game. The Buffalo Bills second at 28.4 points per game. Third was the Philadelphia Eagles, averaging 28.1 points per game. Fourth were the Dallas Cowboys at 27.5 points per game. Number 5 is the Detroit Lions, 26.6 points per game. Number 6, the San Francisco 49ers at 26.5. 7 is the Cincinnati Bengals, 26.1. Number 8 is Minnesota, 24.9. Number 9 is Seattle at 23.9. And rounding out the top 10, you've got the Jacksonville Jaguars at 23.8 points per game. As far as total yards per game, the Kansas City Chiefs were number 1 in the NFL, averaging 413.6 yards per game. Buffalo was second at 397.6. Third was Philadelphia at 389.1. Number 4 was Detroit at an even 380. Fifth was San Francisco, 365.6. Number 6 is Miami, 364.5. 7 is Minnesota, 361.5. Number 8 is Cincinnati, 360.5. Number 9, the LA Chargers at 359.3. And 10th were the Jacksonville Jaguars at 357.4. Okay, passing yards per game. That was led by the Kansas City Chiefs, 297.8 per game. Second was Tampa Bay, 269.8. Third, the LA Chargers, 269.6. Number 4 is Miami, 265.4. Number 5 is Cincinnati, 265. Number 6, Minnesota, 263.8. Number 7 is Buffalo, 258.1. Number 8, Detroit, 251.8. Number 9 is Philadelphia, 241.5. And Jacksonville rounds the top 10 in passing yards, averaging 232.9. Okay, rushing yards. The Chicago Bears led the league at 177.3 per game. Number 2 was Baltimore at 160. Number 3, Atlanta, 159.9. Number 4 is the New York Giants, 148.2. Number 5, Philadelphia, 147.6. 6 was Cleveland, 146.5. 7 was Buffalo, 139.5. Number 8, San Francisco, 138.8. Number 9 was Dallas, 135.2. And number 10 is the Carolina Panthers at 130 per game. All right, third down percentage. The Buffalo Bills led the league in this category at 50.3%. Kansas City Chiefs were second at 48.7%. Third were the Cincinnati Bengals at 46.1%. Number 4 is Philadelphia, 45.9%. Number 5 is Dallas, 45.5%. Number 6, San Francisco, 45%. 7 is Pittsburgh, 44.9%. Number 8, the LA Chargers, 43.6%. 9 is Jacksonville, 41.9%. And rounding out the top 10 in third down percentage is the Atlanta Falcons, 41.8%. All right, fourth down percentage. The Los Angeles Rams led the NFL in this category at 78.9%. Followed by the Chiefs at 75%, finishing second. The Steelers in third at 73.3%. Then it's the Eagles in fourth place, 68.8%. Tied for fifth at 57.1% are Seattle and Carolina. Seventh is Tampa Bay, 55.6%. Number 8 is Cleveland at 54.8%. And tied for ninth at 54.2% are Miami and Las Vegas. All right, time of possession was led by the Washington Commanders. 33 minutes and 24 seconds average time of possession. More than a minute clear than their closest pursuer, who were the Cincinnati Bengals at 32 minutes and 15 seconds. Third is the Green Bay Packers, 31 minutes, 55 seconds. The San Francisco 49ers finished fourth at 31 minutes, 54 seconds. Number 5 is the Cleveland Browns, 31 minutes and 49 seconds. Sixth are the Pittsburgh Steelers, 31 minutes, 31 seconds. In seventh, the Baltimore Ravens, 31 minutes, 10 seconds. So all 4 teams in the AFC North finished in the top 10 in average time of possession. The Las Vegas Raiders were number 8 at 30 minutes, 45 seconds. Ninth are the LA Chargers at 30 minutes, 42 seconds. And rounding out the top 10, the Indianapolis Colts at 30 minutes, 38 seconds. Okay, points allowed. The San Francisco 49ers top defense in terms of points allowed at 16.3 per game. The Buffalo Bills finished second at 17.9. Baltimore was third at 18.5. Number 4 is the New York Jets, 18.6. Cincinnati and Dallas tie for 5th at 20.1. Number 7, in fact, tied for 7th, would be Philadelphia and Washington, both at 20.2. Ninth would be New Orleans, 20.3. And tied for 10th, New England and Pittsburgh, both at 20.4. Sorry. Okay, total yards allowed. The San Francisco 49ers were number 1 in this category also at 300.6 yards per game allowed. Followed by the Philadelphia Eagles at number 2, 301.5 yards allowed. Third were the Washington Commanders, 304.6. Number 4 is the New York Jets, 311.1. Number 5 is New Orleans, 314.8. 6 is Buffalo, 319.1. Number 7 is Denver at an even 320. Number 8 is New England at an even 322. And tied for 9th would be Tampa Bay and Baltimore, both at 324.3. All right. Passing yards allowed, that category was led by the Philadelphia Eagles, 179.8. Number 2 is New Orleans, 184.4. Number 3 is the New York Jets, 189.4. Number 4 is Washington, 191.3. Number 5, Cleveland, 196.2. 6 is Green Bay at 197. Number 7 is the LA Chargers at 200.4. 8 is Dallas, 200.9. Number 9 is Tampa Bay, 203.6. And rounding out the top 10, the Houston Texans, 209.3. And rushing yards allowed. All right, Tennessee led the NFL in fewest rushing yards allowed at 76.9 yards per game, followed by San Francisco at 77.7. Number 3 is Baltimore at 92.1. Number 4, Miami, 103. 5 is Buffalo, 104.6. 6 is New England, 105.5. Number 7, Cincinnati, 106.6. Number 8, Kansas City, 107.2. Number 9 is Pittsburgh, 108.1. And rounding out the top 10 is Denver, 109.8. And those are the individual, or rather the team numbers from the 2022 season. Now we're going to take a look at the individual numbers, and we'll start off with completion percentage. And the league leader in completion percentage in 2022 is Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks at 69.8%. Number 2 is Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals, 68.3%. And third is Justin Herbert of the LA Chargers, 68.2%. Number 4 is Matthew Stafford of the LA Rams at 68%. Number 5, Jimmy Garoppolo of the 49ers at 67.2%. Number 6, Daniel Jones of the New York Giants, 67.2%. Number 7 is Patrick Mahomes from the Chiefs, 67.1%. Number 8, Matt Ryan of the Indianapolis Colts, 67%. Number 9 is Tom Brady of the Bucks, 66.8%. And rounding out the top 10 is Andy Dalton of the New Orleans Saints at 66.7%. All right, passing yards leaders. Patrick Mahomes led the NFL with 5,250 yards. Followed by Justin Herbert with 4,739. Tom Brady, 4,694, finished third. Kirk Cousins of Minnesota, 4,547. Number 5 is Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals, 4,475. Number 6, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions, 4,438. 7th is Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, 4,283. Number 8 is Geno Smith of Seattle, just 1 yard behind Josh Allen at 4,282. Number 9 is Trevor Lawrence of Jacksonville, 4,113. And Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles round out the top 10 with 3,701 passing yards. All right. As far as touchdown passes, Patrick Mahomes led the league with 41. Josh Allen and Joe Burrow tied for second, both with 35. Geno Smith finished fourth in passing touchdowns this year with 30. Both Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff finished with 29 passing touchdowns, tying them for fifth. Aaron Rodgers with 26 puts him at number 7. And then you've got a 4-way tie for 8th place in passing touchdowns with 25, with Tampa Bay's Tom Brady, Miami's Tua Tagovailoa, the LA Chargers' Justin Herbert, and Jacksonville's Trevor Lawrence. All right. Interceptions now. Interceptions. These are the teams that threw the most interceptions, or the quarterbacks that threw the most interceptions. Tying for the league lead in interceptions thrown are Dak Prescott of Dallas and Davis Mills of Houston, both throwing 15 INTs. They have 3 players tied for third with 14 interceptions. Derek Carr of the Las Vegas Raiders, Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings, and Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. In 6th, you have Matt Ryan of the Indianapolis Colts with 13 interceptions. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs and Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals tied for 7th in interceptions thrown with 12. And then you have 4 players tied with 11 interceptions, which would tie for 10th. And those 4 are Mac Jones of the New England Patriots, Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears, Russell Wilson of the Denver Broncos, and Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks. How about that? Jalen Hurts only threw 6 interceptions this year, so he's far from the top 10. Okay, quarterback rating. And surprisingly, the league leader in QB rating this year is Tua Tagovailoa of the Miami Dolphins at 105.5. Second was Patrick Mahomes at 105.2. Third is Jimmy Garoppolo of the 49ers with 103. Then it's Jalen Hurts finishing 4th in QB rating at 101.6. Number 5 is Geno Smith of the Seahawks at 100.9. 6th is Joe Burrow, 100.8. Number 7 is Jared Goff, 99.3. Number 8, Josh Allen, 96.6. And tied for 9th at 95.2 are Trevor Lawrence and Andy Dalton. All right, let's jump over to rushing yards. The league leader in rushing is Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders, 1,653 yards. Finishing second is King Henry, Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans, 1,538 yards. Third is Cleveland's Nick Chubb at 1,525. Saquon Barkley of the Giants finished 4th at 1,312. Number 5 is Miles Sanders of the Philadelphia Eagles, 1,269. Number 6 is Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings with 1,173. 7 is Justin Fields with 1,143 yards. He led all NFL quarterbacks in rushing yards. Number 8 is Christian McCaffrey of the San Francisco 49ers. Of course, he started the season in Carolina, but he finished with 1,139 yards, good for 8th in rushing this year. Number 9 is Travis Etienne Jr. of the Jacksonville Jaguars at 1,125, and rounding out the top 10 is Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers with 1,121 rushing yards. Okay, yards per attempt. And the top 4 are quarterbacks. Justin Fields led the NFL with 7.1 yards per rush attempt. Lamar Jackson was second at 6.8. Josh Allen is third at 6.1. And then Daniel Jones of the New York Football Giants finished 4th at 5.9. Then it's Khalil Herbert of the Chicago Bears at 5.7 yards per rush attempt. 6th is Aaron Jones. 6th is Aaron Jones of the Packers, 5.3 yards per attempt. Number 7 is Tony Pollard of the Cowboys, 5.2 yards per attempt. Number 8 is Travis Etienne Jr. from Jacksonville, 5.1. 9th is Nick Chubb of the Cleveland Browns, 5.0. And rounding out the top 10 is Ramondre Stevenson of the Patriots, also at 5.0. All right. The league leader in rushing touchdowns in 2022 is Jamal Williams of the Detroit Lions with 17. Austin Eckler of the Chargers, Derrick Henry of the Titans, and Jalen Hurts of the Eagles are tied for second with 13 rushing touchdowns apiece. Hurts led all NFL quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns. Tied for fifth with 12 rushing TDs are Josh Jacobs of the Raiders, Ezekiel Elliott of the Cowboys, and Nick Chubb of the Browns. In eighth, you have Miles Sanders of the Eagles with 11. Ninth is Saquon Barkley of the Giants with 10. And Tony Pollard of the Cowboys and Kenneth Walker III of the Seahawks round out the top 10, both with 9 rushing touchdowns. Okay, longest rush of the season goes to Josh Jacobs of the Raiders with an 86-yard run. Dalvin Cook had the second longest at 81. Then it's Lamar Jackson, who had the longest rush by a quarterback in the NFL this year at 79 yards. Number 4 is Dameon Pierce of the Houston Texans at 75 yards. Followed by Kenneth Walker III of Seattle at 74 yards. Next up would be Austin Eckler of the Chargers, 72 yards. Ray McLeod III of the 49ers, also known as the Bang Bang Niner Gang, 71 yards. At number 8 is Saquon Barkley of the Giants, 68 yards. And tied for 9th, you've got Justin Fields of the Bears and Raheem Mostert of the Dolphins, both at 67 yards. All right, over to receiving. Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings led the NFL in receptions with 128. Followed by Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins at 119. Third is Travis Kelce, who led all NFL tight ends in receptions with 110. Number 4 is Stephon Diggs of the Buffalo Bills at 108. Tied for 5th, you have Austin Eckler of the LA Chargers and CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys, both at 107. In 7th place, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions with 106 receptions. Number 8 is Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with 104. Number 9 is Davante Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders with an even 100. And rounding out the top 10 is Michael Pittman Jr. of the Indianapolis Colts with 95 receptions. Receiving yards leader is Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings, 1,809 yards. Second is Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins at 1,710. Third is Davante Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders, 1,516. Number 4 is A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles, 1,496. 5 is Stephon Diggs of the Buffalo Bills, 1,429. 6 is CeeDee Lamb of the Miami Dolphins at 1,359. 7 is Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins, 1,356. Number 8 is Travis Kelce from the Kansas City Chiefs, 1,338. And he led all NFL tight ends in receiving yards. Number 9 is Devonta Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles at 1,196. And rounding out the top 10 and staying in the NFC East is Scary Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders at 1,191. All right, yards per reception. The league leader here is Sammy Watkins of the Baltimore Ravens at 20.3. Second is Jalen Waddle, 18.1. Third is Gabe Davis, 17.4. Number 4 is A.J. Brown at 17 yards per reception. Number 5 is Corey Davis of the New York Football Jets, 16.8. Number 6 is Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or MVS, of the Kansas City Chiefs, 16.4. 7th is Darius Slayton of the New York Giants, 15.7. Scary Terry McLaurin takes 8th place, 15.5. Number 9 is George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers, 15.4. And rounding out the top 10, Devontae Adams of the Raiders at 15.2. Okay. The league leader in receiving touchdowns is Devontae Adams of the Las Vegas Raiders with 14. Second is Travis Kelce of the Chiefs with 12, and he led all NFL tight ends in this category as well. Tied for third with 11 touchdown receptions are Stephon Diggs of the Bills, George Kittle of the 49ers, and A.J. Brown of the Eagles. Tied for sixth with 9 touchdown receptions are CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys, Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks, Amari Cooper of the Cleveland Browns, Jerick McKinnon of the Kansas City Chiefs, and Jamar Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's pretty much as far as we can go here. Okay. The longest reception in the NFL, that goes to Gabe Davis of the Buffalo Bills, 98 yards. Second is Jalen Waddle, 84 yards. Third is TJ Hawkinson, 81 yards. Fourth is Breece Hall, 79 yards. Fifth is A.J. Brown, 78 yards. Number 6 is A.J. Green, 77 yards. And you've got a host of players at 75 yards. Damiere Byrd of the Falcons, Robbie Anderson, previously of the Panthers and now of the Cardinals, Cooper Kupp of the Rams, Trent Sherfield of the Dolphins, De'Ami Brown of the Commanders, and Rashad Bateman of the Ravens, all at 75 yards. Okay, now we're turning our attention over to defense. Foyesade. All right, Foyesade Olakun led the NFL in tackles with 128. 20 clear of his closest pursuer, which is Nick Bolton of the Chiefs, who had 108 tackles. Third is Jordan Brooks of the Seahawks at 103. Number 4 is Zaire Franklin of the Colts with 102. Tied with 99 tackles are C.J. Mosley of the Jets, T.J. Edwards of the Eagles, and Jalen Petrie of the Texans. In 8th is Bobby Okereke of the Colts with 97. 9 is Drew Tranquill of the LA Chargers with 93. And rounding out the top 10 is Alex Singleton of the Denver Broncos with 92. All right, here are your sacks leaders from 2022. Nick Bosa, king of the mountain in the NFL in terms of sacks for the San Francisco 49ers with 18.5. Tied for second are Hassan Reddick of the Philadelphia Eagles and Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns, both with 16. Tied for fourth at 15.5 sacks are Chris Jones of the Chiefs and Matthew Judon of the Patriots. Coming in at number 6 is Alex Highsmith of the Steelers at 14.5 sacks. 7th is Micah Parsons from the Dallas Cowboys at 13.5 sacks. And tied for 8th at 12.5 sacks are J.J. Watt of the Cardinals, Brian Burns of the Panthers, and Mad Max Crosby of the Las Vegas Raiders. Again, all of them with 12.5 sacks. Oh, I see my boy on here, Josh Uche of the Patriots. He just missed the top 10, though, at 11.5 sacks. Okay, interceptions. All right, Justin Simmons of the Broncos, Minkah Fitzpatrick of the Steelers, C.J. Gardner-Johnson of the Eagles, and Tariq Woolen of the Seahawks led the league in interceptions with 6. And then tied for 5th are DaRon Bland of the Cowboys, Jalen Petrie of the Texans, Jair Alexander of the Packers, P. Square Patrick Peterson of the Vikings, Deshaun Gibson Sr. of the 49ers, and Harrison Smith of the Vikings, all tied for 5th in interceptions, all with 5. All right, now we're going to talk special teams as we round this thing out. All right, field goals made in 2022. The league leader is Justin Tucker of the Baltimore Ravens with 37. Both Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks and Daniel Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders tie for 2nd with 34. 4th is Eddie Pinheiro of the Carolina Panthers with 33. Tied for 5th with 32 are Younghoe Koo of the Atlanta Falcons and Nick Folk of the New England Patriots, both with 32. Ryan Suckup of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finished 7th in made field goals with 31, and then rounding out the top 10 are Greg Zuerlein of the New York Jets, Chase McLaughlin of the Indianapolis Colts, and Riley Patterson of the Jacksonville Jaguars, all finishing with 30. Okay. Field goal percentage. League leader is Eddie Pinheiro of Carolina, 94.3%. Second is Ka'imi Fairbairn of the Houston Texans, 93.5%. Third is Matt Gay of the LA Rams, 93.3%. Tied for 4th at 91.9% are Daniel Carlson of the Raiders and Jason Myers of the Seahawks. 6th is Cairo Santos of the Chicago Bears, 91.3%. Tied for 7th are Brett Maher of the Dallas Cowboys and Graham Gano of the New York Giants, both at 90.6%. Ninth is Matt Prater of the Arizona Cardinals at 88%, and rounding out the top 10, Tyler Bass of the Buffalo Bills at 87.1%. Okay. Longest field goal made in 2022 was made by Harrison Butker of the Chiefs, 62 yards. Second is Greg Joseph of the Vikings, 61 yards. Tied for the third longest field goal made in the NFL this year is Will Lutz of the Saints, Brett Maher of the Cowboys, and Greg Zuerlein of the Jets, all hitting 60-yard field goals. Then you have a tie for 6th with Chris Boswell of the Steelers and Evan McPherson of the Bengals at 59 yards. And then you have a tie for 8th with Justin Tucker of the Ravens, Matt Gay of the Rams, Joey Sly of the Commanders, and Cade York of the Browns, 58 yards. All right. Now we're going to go to punts. Corliss Waitman of the Denver Broncos led the league in punts with 96. Second would be Ryan Stonehouse of the Tennessee Titans with 90. Followed by Cameron Johnston of the Houston Texans with 88 punts. That puts him third. Tied for 4th are Tress Way of the Washington Commanders and Braden Mann of the New York Football Jets with 83 punts each. Number 6 is Johnny Hekker of the Carolina Panthers, 81. 7th is Jake Camarda of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with 79. Sitting 8th is Blake Gillikin of the New Orleans Saints, 77 punts. 9th is Jamie Gillan of the New York Giants, 74. And rounding out the top 10 is a tie with Ryan Wright of the Minnesota Vikings and J.K. Scott of the LA Chargers, both with 73 punts. Okay. Average yards per punt, the league leader is Ryan Stonehouse of the Titans, 53.1 yards per punt. Then Tommy Townsend of the Chiefs finished second at 50.4. Third is Logan Cook of the Jacksonville Jaguars, 49.3 yards per punt. A.J. Cole of the Raiders is fourth at 48.9. Jake Camarda of the Buccaneers, 48.8, finished up in fifth place. Sixth is Jack Fox of the Detroit Lions, 48.6. Tied for seventh are Corey Bojorquez of the Browns, Michael Dixon of the Saints, or rather the Seahawks, and Johnny Hecker of the Panthers, all at 48.5. And tied for 10th are Brian Anger of the Cowboys and Raleigh Dixon of the Rams, both at 48.4. All right, longest punt. That goes to Brian Anger of the Dallas Cowboys at 83 yards. Second longest punt is a tie with Corey Bojorquez and Tommy Townsend at 76 yards. The next longest punt is 74, and there's a tie here with Mitch Wisnowski, Jake Camarda, yeah, I said that right, and Ryan Stonehouse. Tied for seventh at 73 yards are Ryan Wright of the Vikings and Bradley Pinion of the Falcons. And tied for ninth, Pat O'Donnell of the Packers and Braden Mann of the Jets, 72 yards. And then the final stat we'll look at is punts inside the 20-yard line. And the league leaders here are Johnny Hecker of the Carolina Panthers, who led the NFL in punts inside the 20-yard line with 39. Tied for second are Tress Way of the Washington Commanders and Cameron Johnston of the Houston Texans, both at 37. Tied for fourth are Mitch Wisnowski of the San Francisco 49ers and Blake Gillikin of the New Orleans Saints, as well as Ryan Wright of the Minnesota Vikings, all with 32 punts inside the 20. Tied for seventh are Ryan Stonehouse of the Tennessee Titans and Corliss Waitman of the Denver Broncos, both with 30. And rounding out the top 10 are Matt Hawk of the Indianapolis Colts, J.K. Scott of the Los Angeles Chargers, and Thomas Morstead of the Miami Dolphins, each with 28 punts inside the 20-yard line. And that is that, folks. The final standings and team and individual leaders from the 2022 NFL season. All right, so we are done with football, at least until I want to say the schedule comes out. That's not until May, though. So that's probably going to be my next football videos, the schedule release coming up in May, which is right around draft time. But there will be no shortage of sports on this channel. As I said, my weekly look at the NBA and NHL standings, as well as the playoff races in both leagues, those drop every Monday. The latest edition is up now, so go ahead and watch that. And when baseball season begins, we'll do the same thing for them as well. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the pigskin this year. Peace out.